and I fuck with the fake, no. These niggas talk to the Jake Shaw. I be out tasting the cake, y'all. That bitch, she got what it takes, all. Man, I drink all of my lonely cuz. These niggas act like a homie, but my niggas never been phony, dog. So my family, it ain't only blood. That's real, that's real, that's real, that's real.
Okay. We back at it again on this YouTube shit, man. Today we're going to be watching Casual Geographic, Top 10 Animals with Black Air Force Energy. Like CJ the Champ. It's catching on, it's catchy. And it makes sense. Like, niggas know, black people know what Black Air Force Energy is. Black Twitter, you feel me? The internet. Everybody know. This Kangaroo definitely has Black Air Force Energy. That shit was crazy. He just, well, both of them did at first, but to just sit there and look at him while he falls through a fucking fence, come on, man, that's undeniable.
Black Air Force Energy. Good old Urban Dictionary defines it as a person or an object that has insane potential and is crazy enough to deal with anything without fear or hesitation, regardless of moral alignment, including its own rivals or competitors. And despite
Urban Dictionary, that's what I'm saying. Black people know what's up.
Clearly taking grammar lessons from NBA Youngboy, I'd say whoever wrote that was pretty on point. It's a term I use a lot in my videos without really explaining exactly what it is. So here's a full list of the top 10 animals with the most Black Air Force energy. Some animals are an obvious pick, others might just surprise you. But they've all earned their spot, including the animal at number 10, which might have the least clout of any animal on this list, but that's only because it's found one place in the world. Because if this bird were airdropped across the globe, it'd definitely be more known for all the wrong reasons. Starting off is what happens when an animal is too smart for everyone else's quality of life. The Kia is a large parrot that can be found terrorizing the people of New Zealand. And don't let it fool you, this Black Air Force with a Grinch colorway is an op in every way. They're highly intelligent and armed with a hook-shaped beak, which is the perfect tool for Kias to inflate insurance by picking apart cars. You see, the Kia is smart enough to associate people and the cars we drive with food, which is why this anti-mechanic is famous for committing the cutest carjackings you'll ever see. Of course, they don't just stop at cars. This feather felon will go through purses, backpacks, duffel bags, and swipe anything they can fly away with. There was even a case where this airborne pirate stole the passport of a Scottish man that didn't want to be identified. Because no one wants to be remembered for getting denied from your home country because you got
stole his fucking passport. That's crazy. What does a bird know about a passport? Other than it helps you fly. Maybe that's, you feel me, that's the correlation.
Passport pickpocketed by a panhandling parrot. It happened to him and it can happen to you, but guess what? If you happen to get your wallet snatched and try to see the Kia about it, be prepared to also eat a several $1,000 fine and even jail time. Kias are protected by the government because it only makes sense that something with wings would be above the law. And it's almost like every Kia knows it and acts accordingly. But it's not just humans getting griefed. Kias will regularly raid other birds' nests and make omelets with their unborn children. And they'll use that Swiss Army knife of a nose to remove parts of a living sheep to eat, and there have been reports of them victimizing dogs and even horses. But at least the Kia isn't a legitimate physical threat to people. The next animal's responsible for putting more zookeepers on workers' comp than any other animal. The African wilderness has some of the most ways to F around and find out per square mile in the world. So it makes sense that living in the most dangerous area codes in the world has turned the zebra into an actual psychopath. This oppressed Oreo horse has the strongest kick in the animal kingdom, strong enough for Marty to have written Alex out of the sequel. Which is why even though lions body them often, every once in a while a lion has to explain to his ancestors how he got flatlined by a high-strung equality donkey. But the generational anxiety of being constantly hunted means the zebra will often one-shot something for existing too close to it. There's two reasons why you won't see a person riding a zebra. One, they're too small. And two, every zebra is fundamentally a bastard to its core. No, like literally. Because many mother zebras will actually mate with as many males as possible, because if she's showing and he suspects it's not hers, he'll violently press her until it's terminated. And if the baby's already out, that's just an invitation for him to demote her from mother to mourning. And going back to humans, zebras are infamous for allegedly putting as many zoo staff in the ER as any other animal. They may look like horses whose favorite part of a birthday is the
I did not know that.
Finger painting station, but this panda pony's liable to paint the block with your insides if you breathe at them the wrong way. Treat one like a barnyard animal and negotiate your left hand. And because zebras are genetically closer to donkeys than horses, calling it the ass of Africa is a scientifically accurate title. And as the default protein of many of the landlords of the savannah, it's a title they hold with pride, cause it's the best one they can get. Speaking of titles, you ever think about how dope the title of landlord actually is? Like landlord, as in lord of the land? I'm sure it's a title that would get more respect if there weren't such zebras about it. Even though it's kind of been tainted, the title of lord used to be reserved for the elites of society like princes, lieges, and feudal superiors. Back then, to be called a lord, you'd have to A. join the House of Lords, B. marry someone who's already a lord or lady, or C. buy land from someone who's already a lord and have the title passed down. I don't know about the first two options, but today you're still able to buy land and be referred to as a lord. Like with established titles, you can actually buy plots of Scottish land and an official certificate of ownership. And if you really wanted to be extra about it, you could actually change your name to lord or lady and put it on credit cards, plane tickets, even dating profiles. Because the only type of person that swipes left on a lord is someone that knows they don't deserve one. It doesn't actually make you royalty, like you wouldn't be able to pull up to the House of Lords and have them open the gates for you, it's just a title. But it's a pretty cool title to have. The certificates look like this, and yes, I'm technically Lord Casual, and best believe I don't ever let my friends forget it. And you have my permission to be just as insufferable. Each certificate has a plot number to show you the exact location of the plot, and with each order, a tree gets planted to fight deforestation. With the help of global charities, one tree planted and trees for the future. You can't be a narcissist if you're also helping the environment. Also, the first 200 people to buy using a link will be giving a plot basically next to mine, so we'd pretty much be neighbors. So to earn your title of lord or lady, go to establishedtitles.com/casualgeo and use the code casualgeo for an extra 10% off. 10% off is also when you
First, you have to use NordVPN to get to that website.
can expect if you treat this barcode horse as a petting zoo. But at least they have the excuse of constantly being plotted on. The next animal has less excuses but more disrespect. Deer manage to cause billions of dollars in damage a year by playing freeze tag with cars, and that ironically makes them the most dangerous animal in America. But where blissful ignorance makes deer a threat, the deer of Down Under initiate conflict. 9 out of 10 car accidents in Australia involve kangaroos, and a good number of them are premeditated and not by the driver. Kangaroos assault vehicles with enough regularity to commit insurance fraud.
That was excellent. That fucking kangaroo said, "Oh, you not in my hood. Hey, where you from, cuz? Where you from, blood?" That's what that kangaroo just said.
In fact, kangaroos will regularly beef with inanimate objects. But it's not just a bluff. These are some brolic marsupials, armed with claws, but more importantly a sharp dagger.
I don't gangbang, by the way. Don't fucking press me out. I'm not from LA. I'm not from nowhere that got no gangs. I'm not from a gang. Just leave it at that.
Of a toenail, which is why it's not a kangaroo's punch you have to worry about, but that Jurassic pedicure disembowelment. It's what makes their sparring sessions so lethal. That and the fact that kangaroos start every day with the specific goal of inconveniencing as many life forms as possible. If you happen to fly a drone in kangaroo country, prepare to have your insurance tested. In fact, it's not a stretch to say they hate anything that flies. Can you imagine how ridiculous this could have gotten? Imagine people thinking you died paragliding when really you survived but got mobbed by a pack of roid rabbits on impact. Kangaroos are number 8 because there's really no good reason for this. You see, as dangerous as
call them roid rabbits. Yeah, pretty much.
Australia is, there aren't really any dominant apex land predators. While kangaroos often contend with dingoes and the occasional wedge-tailed eagle, a full-grown kangaroo doesn't have much that can threaten it, other than a bigger kangaroo. So my working theory is, they got cocky. And until nature airdrops some bears or maybe some type of big cat, kangaroos are still gonna be out here thinking they can do whatever. Try to change their mind at your own risk. As on-site as these malicious macropods are, they're not even the most disrespectful animal in Australia, and believe me, we'll get to that. The Big Five refers to the top 5 most dangerous animals to hunt in Africa. These include the elephant, the rhinoceros, the lion, the leopard, and an animal so feared it's been nicknamed Black Death. The African Cape Buffalo is a walking attempted homicide case armed with a pair of horns to make most attempts successful. They have one of the highest KD ratios against humans with guns. In some places, these tanks with road rage and 50% of the people they go after, and a lot of that is because they will actively seek revenge. There have been stories of one buffalo murking the same hunter that took out a member of its own herd. And whether you're a lion or a hunter, these trench cows get it back in blood. And the scariest version of a Cape buffalo is one that's already been injured. Hunters have followed a mortally wounded buffalo into thick brush only for the freight train with legs to circle back and ambush them from behind. Which is why the number 1 rule when hunting Cape buffalo, assume you only have one shot because that's usually all you get. But it's not just humans getting bodied. Bloodlusting buffalo will seek out unsupervised lion cubs and log them out of life before they can grow up to be a threat. Not like the adults aren't at risk either. Capes will stalk and circle lone lions using the threat of gang violence to give Mufasa a roommate. Which is how the same apex predator that can solo multiple hyenas can get sent up a tree like a house cat. They're like the Liam Neeson of animals. Wrong them and they make it their life's mission to co-sign your obituary. That first hit was self-defense. Everything after that was a personal choice. And even though experienced lions can take them down, it's still very much a gamble. Especially since they can travel in herds of hundreds. That's also how they earned the nickname Widowmaker. Cause right now there's at least one woman on Tinder cause her husband decided to hunt a 1-ton vibe check while the buffalo decided that would be the day he'd finally live up to his nickname. It's a murderous mammal, but like the zebra, it's often just self-defense gone way too far. Not like the antics of the next animal. If you're talking about the Black Air Force of the sky, you're probably talking about crows, or really just corvids in general. Crows are smart enough to manipulate their environment to their advantage, but they're also devious enough to manipulate other animals for their own sadistic pleasure. I don't know what that crow said to that cat, but it certainly involves someone's mother. Ravens will weaponize their relationship with wolves to call out hits on competing coyotes. Crows in Tokyo have especially become a problem where they've basically gone to war against the entire human population. But it's not just humans getting bullied. There might not be a worse time to be an owl than in broad daylight surrounded by a murder of crows. Not to mention crows will often raid the nests of other birds for a disturbingly literal kids meal. And that's when they're not just straight up snatching minors in front of their parents. I think EDP just found a spirit animal. They'll regularly mob and harass the birds until they drop the food they've already caught.
We talked about EDP before. Man, that kid, fuck that guy. He's Bill Cosby with a fucking YouTube channel. Fucking R. Kelly with a YouTube channel. Well, he used to have a YouTube channel, not anymore.
Crows won't hesitate to beat on much larger birds of prey, which might explain why they do the exact same thing.
Speaking of R. Kelly, man, 30 years, I mean, he was wrong for what he did with all them kids or whatever, and pissing on people and all types of shit, all types of weird sex. But 30 years of a man's life? Come on, man. Come on. He should have. I hope he gets out early, man. That's all I can say.
With humans to get them to surrender whatever calories they have on them. But the avian onslaught peaks out with the Australian magpie. Now turns out they're not actually corvids. They actually sit closer to another bird with psychopath tendencies. Either way, Australian magpies manage to be the most feared thing in a country seasoned with crocs, cassowaries, and snakes. And while most wildlife is harmless as long as you respect their space, the earth is their space and they have no patience for trespassers. To the point where many Australians have taken to wearing helmets to protect themselves from the magpie's malicious intent. Especially during swooping season, where magpies will relentlessly attack anything that gets near their nest. Actual human lives have been lost to this goth Tweety's tantrums. And since corvids can remember faces, once you've been swooped, you can expect the same treatment next year. I think Tirzu said it best, corvids are what would happen if you gave monkeys wings. But at least in the magpie's case, they're only a legitimate threat to a human way of life for the roughly 6 weeks of swooping season. Next animal is one of the biggest dangers to humans all year round.
Top 5, let's get it.
It was really only a matter of time before the river rhino made an appearance. Widely considered the world's deadliest mammal, you may have noticed that hippos weren't included in the Big Five, and I have to assume that's because nobody that has a desire to see the next day would actually hunt them. Arguably, no animal has a harder working PR team than the hippopotamus. First of all, it's not the goofy lard donkey it lets you think it is. A thin subcutaneous fat layer means hippos are actually walking units. And despite their awkward appearance, hippos can outpace any human over short distances, and that includes on land and in water, where they somehow become even more territorial. Hippos have been known to lower the census totals of other animals for seemingly no reason. Just when an antelope thinks it's been bailed out, the slaughter horse does origami with its spine. And even though they're supposed to be herbivores, every once in a while they'll give in to the temptation of tasting the flesh of their victims. Cannibalism is not off the table. Science doesn't really know why exactly they do this, but science doesn't account for an animal just being a dick. Few predators will press this obese water pig, and those that do so at their own risk. Hippos are so carnage happy that the biggest threat—
R.I.P. lion, god damn. Vicious ass hippos.
to a baby hippo
Hungry hippos.
is a bigger, meaner bull hippo. It's how a hippo baby shower can legitimately end in a rain of flesh confetti. Now, to be fair, plenty of animals resort to infanticide. Hippos are just really mean about it. Like I said, nobody's PR team works harder. Except maybe dolphins. Which makes sense since despite resembling ungulates like warthogs and rhinos, the hippo's closest living relatives are actually cetaceans like dolphins and whales. But instead of making it out in the ocean, hippos decided to make a living griefing everything in its area code. And I didn't even mention the way they claim that area code. You know, if you unsubscribed right now, I wouldn't blame you. The only thing that can make this well
That is disgusting. That's how you shit, nigga, with a tail. That's the only way you can shit is if you spray it everywhere. And so that's how they mark their territory. They know their shit smell, and that's fucking stupid. That's why they lower on the pecking on the what's the fucking shit called? Not the pecking order. It is the pecking order, but the food scale, the God damn. Like Craig Mac. I'm gonna figure it out.
And more of a menace than it already is if it were a straight up predator, or if it hunted in packs. Then again, that would literally make it an animal further down this list.
Put it in the comments what I'm trying to say. The food scale, the pecking order, they're lower on the list than humans. That's why, because they fucking shit and spray it everywhere.
My personal bias was not going to keep the elephant off this list. As much as I love them, elephants can be a devastating combination of smart enough to do anything and big enough to get away with it. Asian elephants especially get themselves into trouble by raiding villages and emptying out their rice supply, which is why Asian elephants are responsible for the bulk of human hashtags, especially since they can be just as vengeful as the Cape buffalo. Earlier this year, a man in Thailand had an elephant working hauling wood in the brutal heat, which is illegal, and apparently the elephant knew his rights because he proceeded to rip his boss in half. And of course, we gotta address the I'm better than that. One elephant traveled over 100 miles to murk a 70-year-old woman collecting water, only to pull up to her funeral to attack the sole evicted body, this time in front of her family. The biggest mystery of mankind is what motivated a 4-ton pachyderm to pack up an elderly woman twice. If he had a reason, it's not like he's gonna tell us. Elephants rank over hippos because where hippos commit war crimes in the heat of passion, when an elephant catches a body, you can almost be certain it was premeditated. And it's in populations that have been fragmented by poaching, where young male elephants really fly off the handle. And bull elephants are already pretty high-strung as it is, but they managed to get worse in communities decimated by poaching, to the point where 3 elephants in South Africa were responsible for deleting 63 rhinos as well as charging at people. Now, to be fair, poaching typically targets older bulls, and research shows that without old heads around, younger male elephants go into must a lot sooner than they should. Which I get. What I don't get is why that has to involve turning a rhino from a tight end to a wideout. What you have to remember is that elephants are intelligent enough to experience every human emotion like compassion, empathy, and hope. But for every headline like this, you might get a headline like this. And if elephants wore shoes, they'd rock the biggest black Air Forces the world's ever seen. But that's only because the next animal on this list doesn't have legs.
That fucking elephant kicked a damn turtle. How you gonna kick a turtle? That's fucked up.
One of the biggest injustices of cinema is that where dolphins got cast as a lovable flipper, sharks got typecast as Jaws. Dolphins are the most disrespectful beings in the ocean. Makes sense because they're basically intelligent hydrodynamic hippos. They regularly bully sharks, use fish heads and live eels as marital aids, commit unprovoked acts of porpoising, all while letting humanity think they're the good guys. They have mating practices so brutal that I probably can't even talk about them. Just know that what dolphins like to do to each other, guidelines might try to do to me. But we can't talk about dolphins without talking about the biggest dolphin of all. The orca is the most dominant apex predator on the planet that isn't human. And as if sheer size and intelligence wasn't enough, they typically hunt in pods with the coordination of a wolf pack, which is how this oppressive sea oriole regularly griefs the tankiest animals on the planet. They're such a force that great whites have been known to abandon hunting grounds for up to a year once this steroid quality guppy makes an appearance. Probably because they've been known to use the shark's biology against them to rob them of their heart and liver, just to leave the rest of the shark to sink to the abyss. And then there's the fact that orcas often practice their craft on other animals, which is why if you ever feel bad about penguins getting bullied by seals, I suggest you see what happens when a Navy SEAL joins the Air Force. And while you could chalk this up to hunting strategy, there's also the chance that living life on Roku difficulty means orcas get bored and just start trying stuff. And while it's true a wild orca is never taking out a human, that hasn't stopped them from actively messing with human vessels with disturbing regularity. It's like they know who's ruining the ocean and adjust their behavior accordingly. Either way, orcas are the humans of the sea, and anything that steps to them gets reminded expeditiously. Even moose of all things. Moral of the story, Free Willy should have been put on parole. The only thing more black Air Force than an animal that griefs everything around it would be an animal that commits atrocities against its own kind. And that's why orcas are only number 3. Ask any zookeeper what animal they fear the most. If they don't say chimps, they've never worked with one. A common misconception is that chimps are
Here we go with the chimps again. Casual Geographic, Mama, do you love chimps? Stop it with the chimps, or not. Just keep bringing the facts, man.
Times stronger than the average man. And while the number is actually closer to 1.5, chimps have more fast twitch muscles, a stronger bite force, and a stronger grip force. Their ability to use tools is fascinating to watch, until you realize that means they're able to create and use weapons. People often forget that chimpanzees are pack hunting predators able to execute attacks with the precision of early man, and that doesn't just apply to their prey. Chimps in Luongo National Park have been documenting attacking families of gorillas and murking any helpless offspring they can get their hands on. Literally no animal safe from the violent tendencies of a furious George, but it's the damage they inflict against their own kind.
Furious George, that's a bar.
That puts them over the top. Chimp casualties often share the same injuries: a disfigured face, missing fingers if not entire hands, and a non-consensual neutering. Chimps seem to have an understanding of what's important to an animal, and they go out of their way to remove it. It's why I can show you this picture and you'll understand. And it's why instead of organ donor, I have, if ever maimed by a chimp, just let me die on my driver's license. And it's also why you probably have a better chance of surviving being locked in a room with a lion than in a room with a furry chainsaw with guns. The fact that a chimp can get put 6 feet under by members of its own troop guarantees them a spot on this list. The only way an animal could beat that is if something was enough of a menace to be a legitimate threat to itself. And that's exactly what number 1 is. But before we reveal number 1, here's some honorable mentions. The Canadian goose, for having the most irrational confidence of any animal. They actually almost went
Geese are fucking assholes, man. To humans, I've never seen them be assholes to each other. That's why they're not on the list, probably. But they are fucking assholes.
extinct, and now they revolve their entire existence around punishment.
I remember one time I was feeding a goose, like, with bread. There used to be a park where I was like 8 years old. There used to be a park where we could feed the goose, where the geese would fucking come together, and it would be like 100 of them motherfuckers out there, and we used to go out there and feed them, and I ended up getting bit without even, like, after I gave all my fucking bread, I still got bit. Geese are assholes.
Humanity for it. Swans, because what geese think they are, swans always have been. Wolverines, because they're more than capable of hunting for themselves, but they'd rather tax animals 3 times their size for a living. Meerkats, for being quite literally the most homicidal mammals on the planet. And now at number 1, to absolutely no one's surprise, the honey badger, the most unapologetically disrespectful creature on Earth. I have an entire video dedicated to the exploits of this steroid skunk, but here are some highlights. They'll regularly pinch food from leopards and then throw a tantrum if they get caught. They'll take on packs of animals that realistically should be able to one-shot them. But the Oreo weasel has plot armor in the form of crackhead courage. They'll raid the hives of African bees, the same bees that are 10 times meaner and sting 10 times more than their European cousins. And honey badgers aren't immune to bee stings. They're resistant, but enough stings will flatline a honey badger. But ask the honey badger if he cares. He won't answer, but you know the answer. These prison ferrets also run fades with highly venomous cobras. If they manage to get bitten, they'll just slip into a cobra-induced coma and then wake up hours later and walk it off like a Sunday morning hangover. Even the honey badger's idea of self-defense is as offensive as you can get. As in, they'll reverse their anal pouches inside out and release a smell so pungent it can allegedly paralyze attacking bees. And honestly, any animal—
What the fuck? They can fart and
that religiously attack
and paralyze bees with the stench, with the fumes. That is nuts. I did not know that.
the baby makers of others is a different tier of menace. No other badger represented this better than Stoffel, who once escaped from his enclosure and picked a fight with a neighboring family of lions who nearly mauled him to death. After about 2 months in the hospital, the first thing the affiliated ferret did fresh out was go right back at the same lions to settle the score. And that was only one of the hundreds of times Stoffel managed to raise the blood pressure of the people around him. But here's the real kicker. Stoffel was actually hand-raised by humans at a young age and therefore imprinted on them. He had no intention of ever leaving. The whole thing was just a game to him. Because if blatant disrespect were a sport, they still wouldn't play it because anything involving rules goes against a honey badger's belief system. But that's gonna do it for this video. For more consistent content, be sure to follow my Instagram and TikTok. I try to post daily on both. And to further support this channel, my Patreon's also gonna be in the description. But also, don't feel like you have to give anything. If you watched the video this far, you've already done more than enough. But other than that, drink water, hug your mother, don't hug a honey badger, it'll never end well. And I'll see you in the next one.
All right, man, that's that. Shouts out Casual Geographic. Always coming with the facts, man. You make the the best animal videos on the internet. I must admit. Yeah, I still can't figure out what the fucking circle of life, um, food pyramid, pecking order. I can't figure out what I was trying to say. Put it in the comments if you know what I was trying to say. That's that top 10 animals with black Air Force energy. I keep saying that shit's annoying. I'm gonna be playing Modern Warfare 2 campaign when it comes out. We're only like a week and a half away from it, so be on the lookout. Come back to the channel. Be sure to subscribe. I'm gonna be uploading all of that shit. So come get it. That's about it. See y'all later. Peace. Oh, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good shit, man. Don't forget. Peace.